Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the reading of ATRA BILIS by Lalia Ripoll, translated by Clare Nimmo and read by Gilly Daniels, Jeryl Burgess, Judith, Arkwright, Anna Farnworth, and Candela Gomez reading the stage directions. So very well done, everyone. And we will start now the Q&A. So I'll introduce you to Laila and Claire, and then we'll have a conversation about the play, and then later I'll open the floor to your questions, which you can send over the YouTube comment section. Lalia Ripoll is a playwright, a teacher and a theatre director. She has a BA Hons in Theatre Studies from the RESAD in Madrid, and she also studied theatre pedagogy at INAEM, interior design at the School of Applied Arts and Artistic Trades, and also Spanish classical theatre at the National Classical Theatre Company. In 1991, she founded the company Micomicon and has directed more than 20 shows there. With Micomicon, she has also traveled the world, and her relationship with Latin America has had a profound influence in her theatre. She has written about 30 plays, some of them on her own, and some of them in collaboration. And these include La Ciudad Sitiada, ATRA BILIS, Los Niños Perdidos, Santa Perpetua, or El Triángulo Azul, in addition to versions and adaptations of classic and contemporary plays. Among the many mentions, nominations, and awards that Laila has received, we could highlight the Max Awards, the Critical Eye, or the National Dramatic Literature Award. And Laila is now the theatre director of the Fernán Gómez Theatre in Madrid. Welcome, Laila. It is an absolute pleasure having you here with us. Bienvenida. Es un placer tenerte aquí con nosotros.
Igualmente. Muchas gracias.
I'll introduce you now to Clare Nimmo. Clare is a translator and Hispanist who lives in Madrid. She has lectured at the University of Durham, University of Manchester, and Universidad Complutense de Madrid. And currently she teaches translation and communication at the Universidad Pontificia de Comillas in Madrid. Her research interests focus on contemporary Spanish culture and translation, specializing in literature by women. Welcome, Claire. It's great to have you here too.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Candela Gomez, once more, will be here with us to assist Laila, as she will speak in Spanish, and Candela will translate. Thank you, Candela, and welcome too.
Thank you.
And welcome to all the actresses, and really very well done for the reading. I'll just start with a few questions to you all, and then, as I said, we'll open the floor to questions from the audience if there are. Laila, my first question is about the origin of this play and the place it takes within your memory trilogy. Could you tell us where the idea and the urge to write this play comes from? Mi primera pregunta es sobre el origen de la obra y el lugar que ocupa dentro de Trilogía de la Memoria. Entonces me gustaría que nos comentaras de dónde nace la idea y la necesidad de contar esta historia.
Escucho muy mal, no sé si vosotros lo escucháis igual de mal que yo. Es que escucho como con un retorno que no oigo nada, no sé si es problema de mi ordenador.
A lo mejor puede ser que tienes que, si está la pestaña abierta de la página web, de donde has visto la lectura, la tienes que cerrar.
Vale, pues un momentito, voy a desconectar.
Sí. No worries, let's just solve this technical issue.
Sí.
And then we can carry on.
Pues que me he ido.
It's okay?
More or less. Bueno, más o menos, no sé, os veo ahí raro, pero por lo menos ya no tengo el retorno, sí.
Vale.
Vale, gracias.
¿Quieres que te repita la pregunta o no? ¿La has podido escuchar más o menos?
Sí, la he escuchado bien. Bueno, ATRA BILIS es la primera parte de la trilogía de la memoria y surge de una escritura concreta para mi compañía, para mi Comic-Con, pensando en los actores que forman parte de esa compañía, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, luego llegaron otras piezas con un tiempo de 10 años hasta completar las 3 obras que forman la trilogía.
So Layla was saying that this play she wrote is the first part of a trilogy. She wrote the trilogy of the memory, which she wrote specifically for her company and thinking of the actors that compose her company. After that, in 10 years' time, she completed all of the trilogy with 2 of the pieces. This is the first one.
Realmente es un texto originalmente escrito para 4 actores varones. No 4 actrices, sino 4 actores, por necesidad de indagar en lo grotesco, ¿no? Sí. Y por una cuestión también de dificultad, también bueno, hace 20 años que acometimos esta obra, una dificultad por una compañía de nuestras características de encontrar unas actrices que se adecuaran a este rol, ¿no? Unas actrices que, como vosotras, que bueno, me he quedado loca de escucharos, ¿no?
Laila was saying this was originally written for 4 male actors instead of actresses, because back in the day she had difficulty in finding 4 actresses as the ones we've seen today, and her necessity to explore the grotesque is also something that took her to initially write this thinking about 4 male characters.
Además, bueno, mi compañía, mi Comic-Con, tiene las raíces en el teatro, un momentito, de las raíces en el teatro clásico. Entonces nosotros empezamos haciendo Lope de Vega, Calderón, y entonces, bueno, pues retomamos esa tradición también de hombres haciendo de mujeres.
So in her theatre company, they also have this tradition of classical theatre that you can see in Lope de Vega, Calderón, where male actors play female characters.
Y eso es todo.
Muy bien.
Perfect.
A simple question, ¿por qué ATRA BILIS? Why ATRA BILIS as the title of the play?
Bueno, viene del adjetivo atrabiliario y viene de ATRA BILIS, es la bilis negra, que es de los 4 humores que formaban el cuerpo para los antiguos, era el responsable de la melancolía, pero también de lo que nosotros llamamos la mala leche.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So why the play has this title, ATRA BILIS? It comes from atrabiliario, which refers to one of the 4 humours that, according to the ancient beliefs, lived in our body. And this is the black bile, corresponding to melancholy and to, how should I translate to mala leche? Wrath or rage. So yeah, that's one of the 4 humours, black bile.
And the style of the 3 plays, ATRA BILIS, Los Niños Perdidos, and Santa Perpetua, I think they have points in common from the style, the point of view, some of the themes, the social context, and the gloom of the Spanish Civil War. I would like you to tell us a little bit more about the style and themes of the trilogy in general and of ATRA BILIS in particular. Decía Laila que el estilo de las 3 obras de tu trilogía de la memoria tienen puntos en común, no solamente en cuestión de estilo, sino en temas, contexto social, la sombra de la Guerra Civil Española y las tradiciones. Entonces quería que nos contaras un poco más sobre el proceso de escritura de estas 3 obras y sus puntos en común.
Bueno, no, en un principio no tenía intención de hacer una trilogía. Yo escribí ATRA BILIS, luego 10 años después llegó Los Niños Perdidos, que habla del auxilio social, de los hogares, donde lo que llamaban las cárceles de los pequeñitos, que era donde metían a los hijos de los represaliados, los hijos de los perdedores de la guerra. Y terminé otros 10 años después, todas tienen una una diferencia de 10 años de escritura con Santa Perpetua. Entonces ahí fue cuando me di cuenta de que tenía una trilogía.
So Lola was saying she didn't really have in mind writing a trilogy at the start. 10 years after she wrote ATRA BILIS came The Lost Children, which speaks about the homes in which the children of the defeated in war were put in. And 10 years after then Santa Perpetua came, and that's when she realized she had come up with a trilogy, but it wasn't her initial idea.
Igual que tampoco tenía muy claro el tema. Se puede situar ATRA BILIS en un previo a la guerra, quizá los años 20. Los niños perdidos es claramente la posguerra y Santa Perpetua es, una vez que muere el dictador, pues todo el principio del intento de exhumar los cuerpos de los desaparecidos.
So if she had to set each of the plays, ATRA BILIS would clearly be the 20s, Los Niños Perdidos, The Lost Children would be post-war, and Santa Perpetua would be after his death.
Entonces sí hay como una consecuencia. ATRA BILIS es el origen, luego hay bueno, esa familia que evidentemente forma parte de la oligarquía y forma parte de los que ganaron la guerra, acaban convirtiéndose en alguna manera en Perpetua, ¿no? Que es el último libro de la trilogía.
So ATRA BILIS is the origin, and it tells how those who won the war eventually made themselves into the plot of Santa Perpetua.
Okay, thank you. Gracias. Claire, I wanted to ask you about the translation of this play. I think this is a very challenging play to translate, and I think you have done a wonderful job. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was a challenge. Would you like me to explain why it was a challenge, or?
I want you to tell us about the translation process first, and then also you can tell us about the challenges that you encounter with this play.
Well, the first thing that strikes you is the religious elements that I had to translate, then mixed with scatological. So I had two completely different registers to deal with. On the one hand, I had caca, I had poo, and on the other hand, I had to translate, obviously, well, different prayers and also a lot of literary references. There was lots of Jorge Manrique, there was Góngora, or it struck me that there was a lot of biblical and at the same time a lot of literary references all mixed together. And it was this mix of registers that was really difficult to combine together. And then of course there were songs as well. And the songs, I had to try and work out the assonance, the rhyming assonance at the end in the Spanish. It has to be more or less full rhyme in the English. And there were lots of different challenges as a translator. But it also makes it more fun, translating like that. It's much more fun.
Yeah. And how about the mix of the Spanish traditions, the religion and the grotesque? How do you approach the translation of those religious references and those Spanish traditions? And what are the questions that the translation of a play like this poses to you, if there were any?
The religious parts, a lot of the songs weren't exactly, there were similar ones that I found. So I adjusted according to similar songs or prayers or poems, but with a twist, always. There was always a twist in them, which was really interesting to deal with. And then the second part you asked, sorry, what was the second part?
If there were any questions that the translation of this play poses to a translator.
And as regards the traditions, it was mainly the proverbs. I had to keep looking up proverbs, more and more proverbs, to try and find the ones which actually we still use to a degree, which would be recognizable to the audience. Because if you looked up, sometimes you get very close ones, but they're not ones which an English-speaking audience would understand or grasp immediately. And I wanted something that they could really connect, and the way the actresses have portrayed it tonight have really connected on moments they have really sort of down to earth, and the proverbs I wanted to convey that sometimes weren't the literal ones. I had to take a sideways step, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Now I want to ask a question to all of the actresses, to do a quick round and ask you about, you know, if you can share your vision about the play and your thoughts when you first read ATRA BILIS.
Okay, shall I start?
Yes, please.
When we shared some of these when we rehearsed on Tuesday, but for everybody else, for me, there were two main resonances when I first read the play. The first was real, I won't say similarity, but resonance is the word I want to use again, to the House of Bernarda Alba, La Casa de Bernarda Alba. The character of Nazaria, the character of the servant, the character of the sister who's loopy, although in Bernarda Alba it's the mother, the grandmother, and the idea of a lost child. So many things that I thought came from that and gave some basis to our thinking. And the other thing that came to mind for me was a classic 1960s film, American film, starring Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, which you may know. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
Dane.
Yeah, and especially the relationship between Daria and Nazaria, how much they need each other to survive but hate each other, and the idea of the accident and who caused the accident. And so there were those resonances which gave it a lot of depth, I thought, made it really interesting to work on for me.
Yeah, thank you. Anna, Jude.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you, Leila.
Me
I
too.
wish I could understand a word you were saying. I wish I could speak Spanish. Every time I get a translation from Spanish, from Cervantes into English, I'm always wanting to see it performed in Spanish first, because I always, and sometimes I get to see that when I've worked with them, because then I can see what instinctive things those Spanish actresses bring to it. But the first thing that that hit me with, I agree with Jeryl, definitely about Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, but it resonated straight away to me, a black comedy, an English black comedy. And how was it going to be possible to play the grotesque just with the voice? Because a lot of the grotesque is also in the body language as well. That's the first thing that really hit me straight away, was how funny it was. It's hysterical. And I was hoping to find more humor tonight, but I think I would find more humor when I'm allowed my body to show that. It's very tricky. It's big. It's also quite classic in its form, because it does feel like a bit of Greek theatre in some respects, you know. And all the funnily enough, I'd just been looking at the 7 deadly sins again for some reason. Oh, because it was Halloween. And when you talk about the humours that are inside our body and the bile that comes out, I get that completely. And now, by just telling me that, I have a fuller picture of how that would be, because it spews and it spews and it's there. But also, you don't want to overplay when you're doing something on Zoom, so it's hard to know how far to go with something that is so big, but yet has to be so inward.
I think you're right. And when we were rehearsing, as you said, reading the play for the first time on Zoom as well, I think that was the general feeling, no, for everyone, is, oh, we wish we could be on stage and physically.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Looking forward to doing it when things allow.
And we will.
And we will, yes, soon, hopefully.
Yeah, and I definitely felt as well that it was the coffin that was of interest to me, and it kind of was the source of the humor, but also the source of the sort of outpouring of the bile, you know, kind of thing, because it was, which probably does often happen when people die, that moments of truth come out, you know. And so, and the thing with the way it was linked to Bernarda Alba is this idea, and that's why I was so surprised when you said originally you wrote it for male characters, because to me it seemed like, yeah, that really makes sense, that the male is not there, and yet he's the one that kind of exercises all this stuff, this bile out of the women. And it's the same in Bernarda Alba when Pepe Romano is not actually ever present, but it's around him that everything sort of goes, you know. So I saw it as very kind of modern in that way, all the Greek references and all that, but a kind of modern thing about women. And obviously a lot of Greek plays do have those strong and often murderous kind of women in them. So that was the interesting thing for me, and the frustrating thing that we couldn't have the coffin there. And I kept on wanting to look at it because you said it was good honor, but I wasn't sure how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I found really interesting was the moments when they were united, and there was this the companionship that their hatred brought, that the need that they had. So as soon as Ulpiana's dead, it's almost like they were going to get on and be really good friends. And yet, no, the old habits had to come back in, and they started playing their games again. And the moment when you two are looking into the coffin and you know, starting to admire the same sorts of things, until you realize, hang on, we're not supposed to be. You're I can't agree with you, but that's the end. Close the coffin lid. Yeah. So this is what I found interesting, you know, because you can have a lot of disagreement and hatred between people, but it's what causes them to then come together and then pull apart again. What was that moment? Yeah.
Okay, I think there is something about that you have mentioned about the House of Bernarda Alba meets Goya's black paintings as well. So I want to ask you, Laila, about that, about the references in your work and what inspires you. Decía que mencionábamos antes, ¿no?, sobre la casa de Bernarda Alba, casi
las pinturas negras.
Las negras de Goya. Cuéntanos un poco sobre tus referencias, lo que te inspira a la hora de escribir y en particular en esta obra.
En esta obra sí hay toda una tradición, ¿no? Una tradición que parte de Quevedo y termina, pues no sé dónde acaba, ¿no? Pero sí, está Goya, están las pinturas negras, está Quevedo, está Valle Inclán, absolutamente, sí. Claro. O sea, es una Bernarda Alba, pero pasada por el ojo de Valle Inclán, ¿no? Distorsionada. Y luego hay mucho también de Edgar Allan Poe y muchísimo de Serrat y sobre todo de Juan Rulfo, ¿no? El Pedro Páramo de Juan Rulfo, la Kumala de Juan Rulfo está.
Laila was just mentioning as some of her references, Valle Inclán, Quevedo, Edgar Allan Poe as well. As we mentioned, Goya and the dark paintings. She says it's a sort of Bernarda Alba seen through the glass of Valle Inclán.
Sí, es como si se hubiera reflejado en el Callejón del Gato, ¿no? Es un poco el esperpento, lo grotesco. Pero eso, sobre todo hay mucha literatura iberoamericana. Hay mucho Juan Rulfo y hay mucho Salarrué y también Borges. También hay mucho de Borges.
Sí. So Borges, Juan Rulfo, and also lots of Latin American literature as well has inspired her.
Good. Also, the context, I think, in this play is very particular. No? In Spain, the Spanish Civil War, post-war times. I think you're painting a portrait of a Spain that belongs to a dark part of history. No, before that, mainly in the trilogy, but in this part before the Spanish Civil War. But that despite being silenced, we still recognize. And that made me think about another play that you wrote, Descarriadas, that we had the pleasure to bring here at the Cervantes Theatre last year with Luna Paredes y Paloma Rodera. And I think that you bring to the front stories that have been buried, silenced, or forgotten. So I wanted to ask you what moves you to tell these kind of stories. Decía que en el contexto de esta obra creo que vemos una España marcada, bueno, de la trilogía en general, por la guerra civil y esa parte oscura de nuestra historia que, bueno, que a pesar del silencio está todavía presente. Y me acordé de tu obra Descarriadas. Y el placer de traer aquí el año pasado al teatro con Luna Paredes y
Paloma.
Y nada, y me hacía esta pregunta, ¿no? Que de dónde nace esa necesidad de sacar a la luz historias que han sido enterradas, silenciadas u olvidadas, que creo que eso es algo que se va repitiendo.
Bueno, es que Descarriadas es mi adolescencia, ¿no? Los sitios de los que habla Descarriadas estuvieron funcionando hasta muy entrados los 80, incluso los 90. Pero claro, todo viene de lo mismo, es el problema que tenemos en España, que esa transición que nos han vendido, pues fue lo que fue seguir con toda la maquinaria.
Lalia was just saying how her need to talk about forgotten stories can also be seen in Descarriadas, her play, which basically tells her adolescence, her teenage years in the 1980s, where you could still feel lots of the transition in Spain that had been left after the dictatorship.
Claro, ahora simplemente el problema que estamos teniendo ahora mismo con la ley de memoria histórica es impensable en cualquier otro lugar de Europa, ¿no? Es impensable que estemos hablando que hacer como un monumento como el Valle de los Caídos, que es único en el mundo. O sea, es un edificio que simboliza la doctrina franquista con todas sus capas. Eso sería impensable en cualquier otro lugar de Europa.
Yeah, Lalia was mentioning how we're having this issue in Spain now with the law of historic memory, and how we have issues as what to do with El Valle de los Caídos, the Valley of the Fallen, which is the greatest symbol of the dictatorship in Spain.
Yes, I agree. I think that if there is something that sometimes theater can do, is bring to the light those issues that haven't been dealt with and that need to be, basically brought to the light again, speak about them and trying to cure the wounds that they are still there. Creo que es precisamente muy acertado lo que dices, sobre todo la necesidad que el teatro, como herramienta para poder sacar a la luz esta problemática que todavía existe, pues precisamente por haberla puesto a un lado y enterrada y pretender seguir hacia adelante sin mirar atrás, creo que el teatro es una herramienta muy poderosa para poder lidiar con ello, hablar de ello y poder sanar algunas heridas.
Sí, es que, por ejemplo, El Triángulo Azul, que es el texto que escribimos Mariano Llorente y yo, en el año, se estrenó en el 14 y habla de los 7.000 deportados españoles que hubo en el campo de concentración de Mauthausen, de los que solamente sobrevivieron 2.000, bueno, sí, más o menos 2.000 solamente fueron los que sobrevivieron, y fueron los que consiguieron sacar todos los negativos de las fotografías de los nazis que se utilizaron en los juicios de Nuremberg para demostrar la culpabilidad de los nazis. Bueno, en España esa historia se desconocía. y se sigue desconociendo. Entonces tenemos un gran desconocimiento de nuestra historia. Y bueno, pues mientras siga pasando eso, pues habrá que seguir escribiendo este tipo de
Hay que
textos.
contarlas, sí, eso
Claro,
está
hay que
claro.
contarlo, efectivamente. Sí. Tenemos 120.000 cuerpos todavía en cunetas de desaparecidos. Así es, 120.000.
¿Quieres seguir o...?
No, te estoy esperando porque estoy hablando mucho, entonces igual no.
Laila was just reflecting about the importance and the necessity we have in Spain to look at what's forgotten. She's mentioned there's 120,000 bodies still buried. No one knows where, post-Civil War, for instance, and that needs to be addressed, it needs to be looked at. And theatre is, as Paula said, a tool to keep those memories alive.
Was there a law, some sort of an amnesty that was agreed when there was the transition, where the law required that nobody mentioned anything, and you weren't allowed to claim anything from the results of or the effect of Franco?
Sí, me puedes traducir porque entiendo a trozos, entonces me pongo
Sí,
nerviosa.
está preguntando por el marco legal después de...
Bueno, la ley de amnistía es una suerte de ley de punto final. O sea, con la ley de amnistía se quedó todo como se quedó y el problema es que, claro, los desaparecidos de los que hablamos no son desaparecidos de la guerra, son desaparecidos de la posguerra. Es la represión y la eliminación sistemática de todo el disidente, ¿no? Pero se supone que los crímenes contra la humanidad no prescriben, pero bueno, hay una ley de amnistía que hace que no se pueda investigar. Y el problema ya no es tanto una cuestión penal como una cuestión de que el Estado ayude a reparar ese daño, que las familias puedan recuperar los cuerpos de sus familiares, que las calles no tengan nombres de genocidas y de asesinos. No es más que eso, porque realmente lo que es a nivel penal ya han muerto prácticamente casi todos. Aunque bueno, Gilly el niño ha muerto ahora de coronavirus y era un torturador que estaba cobrando un dinero del Estado y estaba condecorado y nadie se quería con él.
Laila was just saying that although due to the amnesty law, this is something that couldn't be investigated, she thinks the issue is more with the state, how the state needs to help the families find their relatives, how they need to support this search for all those lost people.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
I think that finally I will just ask Laila, I will ask you a question which is not related to the play, but is related to the now, and to how you are, I mean, in this situation we are doing the reading via Zoom because of the pandemic, because of this context, and how we're having to adapt into different medias and into keep creating no matter what. So I wanted to ask you, how are you dealing with that in the creative process, and also in the direction of the theater, of the Fernán Gómez? Quería preguntarte ya no solamente sobre la obra, sino por el ahora, por cómo estás viviendo. Estamos haciendo una lectura por Zoom precisamente porque, porque los teatros están cerrados y no podemos hacerlo de otra forma y estamos teniendo que reinventarnos. Y bueno, para mí es interesante el saber cuál es tu experiencia desde allí, desde España, en el lado creativo y en el lado de la dirección del Fernán Gómez.
Bueno, allí tenemos los teatros abiertos, por lo menos en Madrid, aquí los tenemos abiertos, afortunadamente, de momento, y hay se nota que por parte del público hay una necesidad del espectáculo en vivo, hay una necesidad de estar juntos, aunque sea de una manera extraña, ¿no? Porque con las mascarillas, con la distancia de seguridad, con el hidrogel, pero bueno, se sienten los teatros como lugares seguros y con poco aforo, con poco público por las distancias, pero ahí estamos intentando aguantar.
Lalia was saying that at the moment in Spain and Madrid theatres are open, and she does notice in the audience this need to connect again, the need to go to a live, see a live show, a live performance. It's all under very strict measures, obviously masks and social distancing, but she feels they are being quite safe. They are being a safe space at the moment.
Yes, I think that in London we see a completely different picture. I think because of the different industry that it is and the way that it works here. That many theaters haven't been able to reopen because the socially distanced performances are not financially viable because of ticket revenue and the way that the system works here. And now the few theaters that were able to reopen, now this is the first day of our second lockdown, and they've had to close with the financial impact that has on them. So yes, I think that we're all in the same pathway, trying to keep connecting and knowing the importance of culture for the soul, for constructing and for the recovery of everyone from this pandemic. But yes, we'll see, we'll keep working and we'll keep fighting and reinventing ourselves. Decía que aquí la industria es muy diferente, bueno, es diferente y que con las restricciones de aforo no se ha podido reabrir. La mayoría de los teatros no hemos podido reabrir, solo han reabierto muy poquitos y hoy es el primer día del segundo confinamiento, del segundo lockdown aquí, entonces han tenido que volver a cerrar. Los poquitos que habían podido abrir han tenido que volver a cerrar. Pero bueno, que a pesar de todo, aquí seguimos creando de forma diferente.
Reinventándonos, ¿no? Que es la historia del teatro desde hace 2000 años.
Efectivamente, sí, sí, sí. Y nada, y sabiendo de la importancia que tiene la cultura para reconstruir y para la recuperación. O sea que bueno, aquí seguimos todos. So, well, thank you, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. The reading, the Q&A afterwards. So thank you, Laila, Claire, Gilly.
Thank you, Laila.
And
Thank you, Laila.
and Candela. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laila.
And I
Thank
also
you,
want
Paula.
to thank again Acción Cultural Española, the Cervantes Institute, the Spanish government, the Spanish Embassy in London, and Arts Council England for their support. And finally, a big thanks to you all for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next Thursday, the 12th of November, for the online dramatized reading of The Play to be Played by Miguel del Arco and Aitor Tejada, in an English translation by Simon Breden. Thank you, have a lovely evening, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Right, guys. Bless.